Okay, before we start on the topic, I'll tell you a little bit about how I got here. I'm an information systems professor in the College of Business, and as such, we look at, we're systems thinkers, and we look at how the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And we looked at the interaction of the parts to add value to the outcome. And in this case, the system is the students and the technology and the information that they're dealing with. And so I've been looking at how can I improve the learning outcome of the students, looking at these parts and how they interact. I started looking at what creates success in students, went back to the education literature, looked at various things as to how to engage students, what things produces success in the classroom. First of all, I came up with relationship learning, and that is if you have a good relationship with the student, then the student is encouraged to learn and the outcomes are better. And then I looked at the technology component of that, and I saw and watched, as we all did, everybody engage in social media. And so then I looked at that and said, I wonder if this is a kind of a substitute or a equivalent to a face-to-face relationship with the teacher. And so I went and looked at relationship, what forms a good relationship, NAP's work on that, and ended up with coming to the conclusion that it was a kind of a pseudo relationship, and it did, if you build that relationship in an online environment, then it enhances the actual relationship and the student outcomes. Stage 2 of that is watching the students again. What are they all doing? What are they all doing with technology? Well, it's not just Facebook, it's not just social. With the advent of the mobile phones, and particularly the adoption of the smartphones, we see all of these games. And I watch all the students as well as the rest of everybody around me playing these games. And one that took my attention was Farmville. And I just couldn't work out why people would check Farmville 50 times a day to watch their crops grow. And I thought, I wonder if we could have something like that that would engage the students just as much as that silly Farmville game. Somehow we've got to motivate them. So that's where I came with the intersection of games, using technology, games, and student participation. So, as we all know and have observed, the next generation is that participates in more online communities, less physical communities. In fact, a lot of them are not getting their licenses until much, much later because they'd prefer to be in online communities rather than face-to-face communities. A lot more online interaction, less face-to-face, immersed in high stimuli media, and decreased participation in class engagement, class discussion. And in a sense, it's with all that they're doing for the rest of their time, of course we're going to find it difficult to get participation and engagement when you're just standing there delivering the content. Looking at things like the Pew report and what other teachers are saying about loss of engagement in class, putting this all together, I thought, the problem is classroom discussion is a form of engagement, has long been linked to student success, but and I've just been through this, we've seen a decrease in in-class engagement and participation. And this is particularly true in the classes that aren't in the students' majors. And I'm sure you've all been there. They come into the class with the idea that I don't want to be here, this is stupid, I have to take this, I'm never going to use this again, all of those sorts of things. And they bring those attitudes into the classroom. And they've already made up their mind about the content. So it's very difficult to get them to engage in the content. And no matter what the subject, I'm sure that if they would just engage a little, they would find something in it that was very interesting to create that hook. So I thought games. That's what they're all into. Gamification is all about applying game design thinking to non-game applications to make them more fun and engaging. Education is a non-game application. The goals of gamification are to achieve high levels of engagement, change behaviours and stimulate innovation. So I went back to Farmville and such games and the literature that's been written on analysing those games and why they're so successful. And a lot of people study this because there's a lot of money to be made in this. And there was a list of basic criteria that one had to have in a game to get that sort of engagement. Some level of noting of achievement, like badges or going up a level, something like that. Some kind of leaderboard or some way that everybody can see everybody else's achievements. A progress bar of some kind or visual meter that indicates how close people are to completing a particular task. And a system of rewarding for, in my case, in-class participation. I wanted them to discuss, I wanted them to talk to me, I wanted them to tell me what they think. And a way of getting them to do that, it was to say, okay, if you participate in class, you get points. And when you get points, you get to add those points to your game. And I'll show you how that works. Also, the final thing was some sense of competition. So my research question in the project was what elements of games would engender in-class engagement? And seeing I wasn't in the game building business, and no way would I have the time to do one even if I did set about to try and do it, I had to use something that I already had at my disposal. Something fairly simple that didn't have to create or involve a lot of time. So I couldn't create a directly interactive game. But back to that. So what I did do was I watched, taking the lead from Farmville, I took a tree and I gave each student a picture of a tree. They could log on to a group website. Everybody would see everybody else's tree. They get this lame-looking stick tree to start with. And then as they participated in class, they gained points, and the points were added to the tree, and the tree would grow. And the tree would get leaves, and they would level up. The tree would get a background, and then it would get something else, and so forth. So their participation in the class, they could see all of these elements. They could level up, check box 1. They could see one another's participation and have some sort of competition, check box 2. And all of this was really easy to do without any kind of interactive game programming. I conducted the study over 4 semesters now. So each student was given this small leafless tree, and they were rewarded each time they participated in a discussion, and these points translated to additions to their tree. The constraints, as I said, it had to be easy to build with no additional tech purchase, just something that I had at my disposal. Something that was easy to update, because I didn't want to be spending all my time adding points and changing things. And something that could be sort of relevant to what they're doing and fairly timely. So I thought of the idea of the tree, and I geared it to the seasons. So this fall semester goes through to getting a fully decorated Christmas tree, and the spring semester ends up with lots and lots of flowers on their tree. And to try and make it a little bit more fun for them as well, to bring my character into it, I would put little animals in when they leveled up for a background. Then they'd get some animals in the background. I'd put little kangaroos and things like that around, and everybody wanted a kangaroo in their picture. So that stick tree was one of their first images, and then they got leaves, and then they got, I've clipped out a few images, but the kangaroo one, they got just a background first. And then they started to get snow on their tree, and then they got lots of snow and lots of decorations for Christmas and a final Merry Christmas sign at the end. In the spring, it was more like building building flowers. And then if they didn't participate, they ended up with a Charlie Brown tree. And everyone could see one another's trees, so they would make fun of one another's trees. And I'd often have them come up to me in class and say, how do I get more participation points? I want to beat so-and-so. I want to have a better tree than they do. So I could see the dynamics of the gamification working as I did it. So I'll show you the results of a survey that I conducted at the end of every semester. The first semester it was a voluntary survey, and I got maybe about a 50% response rate, and I wondered about the bias of that, because you tend to get, if you make it voluntary, you tend to get the people who really liked it or really hated it. The second semester I gave them a few extra participation points if they would fill out the survey. And that was very successful. I had 100% filling out the survey, so everybody had an opportunity to say what they thought. The first question I asked was, can a game of any sort increase your participation in the class? And 71% strongly agreed. And then the next question was, what elements of games would you respond best to? And sense of fun, competition, status. This pride status thing was not rated very highly in it, and I was a little surprised at that, but it was consistent throughout the 4 semesters that they didn't. Status was not a big deal, but the competition was a little bit more. Ask them if they checked their tree immediately after updates were announced. This was an indicator to me as to how keen they were to go and see what they'd achieved. 70% said yes, immediately after they were announced. Did the tree initiative provide a sense of fun and competition? 69% fun, 73% competition. This is kind of an average. This varied over from semester to semester, but here's the goal, I guess, is did the tree project increase your participation and engagement in the class? The lowest I got was 62 on that, and the highest I got was 88. I just haven't updated the slide with the latest stats. Okay, so I'd go back and show you now the actual web page. I just created it in Google Sites. As I said, that's something everybody has access to. You don't need any programming or any great knowledge of anything to build this. It's a template. All I had to do was get the graphics designed. And that, I started out trying to do that myself, ran out of time, got a graphic design person to actually create the trees for me. And so their homepage looks like this, and each week they would see the options of what trees were available to them. And then they'd quick run on and see, well, ooh, which one did I get? And you have it like this. So you could look, any student could say, click on their name, and then they could see this was obviously a good student who at the end of the semester ended up with a nice graphic. The ones that weren't doing so well, I suppose I did think about the implications of, others knowing others' grades and things like that, but they're not actually, it's not a grade. It's an indicator of a grade, and everybody knows pretty well how well others are doing in the class anyway. They don't know their exact score. So you could see, in a sense, you could see an indicator of how well people were doing on that particular aspect, but not their actual score. So, and this was, enhanced the competition side of it, that you could check everybody else's trees. And they did that, and the survey response said, every time I check my tree, I check everybody else's too. So, bottom line, an average of a 70% increase in participation and engagement in class, and I think that theoretically is supposed to translate to better learning, and my observation is that that has been the case as well. So it worked well for a class that everybody didn't want to be in. I only did it in the class that I know a lot of students don't want to be in. So that's about a summary of it. Any questions?
Was this a strictly online class, or are you talking about a?
Oh, this is a traditional class. Yeah, yeah.
And how do you determine class participation? How do you keep track of that?
That is one of the most difficult aspects of it. I would have their list of their faces and their names, and anytime anyone spoke up, I ticked it. And so that did rely on how sharp I was at ticking and keeping an accurate record of everybody who said anything. I would like a better way of doing that. I haven't tried this in a totally online class. I guess my feel for that is that it wouldn't be as effective because there's just not that real competition type element amongst class members that there is in the actual classroom, where they can nudge one another and say, "Hey, look at your tree," you know. I think, and the design of it was for the online. For the on-ground in class.
Did you have any problem with people just making comments that really were not significant comments? I mean, on some online classes, sometimes people will, just because they've got to make an entry, they'll make an entry, but it really doesn't show a whole lot of thinking and things like that.
No, I didn't, and I think that's because they're more accountable. You're speaking up in class, and I think that's the reason they don't speak up in class, is because they don't want to appear to ask a silly question or to say something silly. And I think this works right against that. I think it makes them think a little before they speak. I actually got very good quality comments with this. And I actually got people reading ahead so they'd have a comment prepared so they could say it. But nobody actually said something silly. Occasionally I'd have one or two comments like that, and then everybody would laugh at them. So college kids are cruel. Hey, but you know, we work with what we got. And it worked very well. Yeah.
How long did it take you each time to input the information, answer their trees and grow? You know, how much time did you spend doing that?
You mean how much time did my student workers spend?
Oh, well, okay. Yeah.
To start with, it was a while. It does depend on the speed of the internet at the time as you change out images. But I'd say on a good day it took about 15 minutes to upload, to edit everybody's page. That's in a class of, say, 32, 33.
So if they participated and then you gave them the background, or did you have a predetermined what they were going to get that day, or a progression of things, or how did you decide what they got, I guess? What did they decide?
To start with, I kind of made it up as we went along. I started seeing what the really good participators, what kind of points they were collecting it, and put it on a kind of a curve, so that, and then I'd say at the end of each second week, I'd say, right, I've totaled the points for the last 2 weeks, and the cut-offs were here, here, and here, and if you were between this range, you got this, if you were between this range, you got that.
You didn't update after every single class?
No, no, it was every couple of weeks, because it would be too time, and it'd be too fine-grained for that as well. You want to have a good body of participation before they earn something. some of them actually, they were asking for something a little bit more interactive, and one student said to me, can I use my points to take leaves off somebody else's trees? That was more the Angry Birds type philosophy, you know, they just wanted to do something to somebody else. So I am looking at trying to get an app written and to have a range of different environments that they can play in. And the class can vote on an environment for their semester, and then everyone will play in that world. And I don't think I'll ever allow them to take somebody else's points away, because they earn those. But we could perhaps do something else that would let them feel like they've got some more power in the environment.
Did they ever disagree with how you graded them? How did you handle?
I did have, for the first time last semester, someone say, you didn't ask enough questions for me to earn the points that I wanted to earn. And I just said, well, you're just going to have to be quicker in answering. But yeah, I did have one student feel like they needed more opportunity to answer than I asked. So I even thought about, well, I guess I could ask more questions and give you more opportunity to earn. So, but you can see the thinking behind it. That is, this is driving. They want to do this, and that was basically the idea behind the experiment, to find out if they would engage and they would do the work that was required to get the outcome that they wanted. And it wasn't a grade in the class, though it translated to...
This did not at all impact the grade at all?
It did. This was a participation grade, which was
What percent of the grade was that?
around 15%. So, you know, and I do that whether I've got a tree or not, because I tell them I want them to participate. This is important. Listen, think, talk.
So did you notice if the grades went up after you started this? Like, did it?
I've been doing it for 4 semesters. It's hard to say because grades are different every semester depending on the cohort. Can be so different. I could look at that and just, I think I'd have to do it over a longer period of time to make any conclusions about that. And that's hard to do because the material changes fairly quickly as well, being in IT. So that would be hard to work out. But I guess my gut feel is yes, the grades were better.
I think you kind of covered that when you said your research shows that participation in class.
Yes.
Not grade, and although you might not have your particular research on it, that's been
that's a proven.
Long time that participation in class helps with grades.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have very many people each semester just kind of check out of this and just settle for a Charlie Brown tree, or did everybody try to get some legs?
I'd say I had about 3 or 4 in every class who went, this is just stupid. I don't care. And I had some say that it made no difference to their participation. They're above this. You know, I would have participated exactly the same way whether I had a tree or not. And some students said that. I've actually got some interesting data, and I haven't had a chance yet, but I'm correlating against majors, and I did notice some trends. I noticed certain discipline areas didn't respond to the tree and other discipline areas did. I noticed that the Walton scholars and our Asian students loved it, whereas some of the nationals didn't so much. I have to tell you, accountants didn't like it.
Didn't like it?
No. I mean, if it's just a minor differences. The marketing students tended to like it a little more. And
I'm curious, and I can see where you're trying to engage students in that class. I'm curious if this is changing their behavior. And I know the study does not go to all classes, but I'm curious if this is having positive reactions and engagement in other classes they're in because they have found out that engagement actually helps them learn, and you're actually changing their behavior. Be interesting to find out. I know it's beyond what you've done. It would take more classes and coordination, but I think it could.
That could be another question I could put on the survey at the end and let them think about, have you participated better in any other classes as a result of this, or, that would be an interesting study as well.
Not that it would matter, but I would like to know the students who said, "Oh, pretty much I'm above this." How many times they checked their
Well, I could actually check that. I could go back and look at the questions of the percentages of who said they checked it. I had 88% in this last class who checked it and checked everybody else's. So it would be interesting to see if those that said it made no difference was more than 12%. Yeah, could look at that.
If another faculty member is interested in doing this type of point reward system in their class, where would they start? What would they need to do?
It's really up to your own imagination, but you can use something as simple as a website and a graphic that changes regularly, and that was part of the point of my study. You didn't have to have something extremely elaborate, because I'm interested in games-based learning as well, but not every subject is amenable to games-based learning, where you actually create a game in the class, and as you put the material into the game, and that engages them that way. And I think that's probably going to get the highest level of engagement. I was just thinking of something that I could do without, because my discipline's not quite as amenable to it as some others. There are no games out there that I've looked at that are really good, though I think I've been looking at Raptivity lately, and I think they're going to come up with some good games in everybody's discipline that you can actually put your content in. And of course there's all the traditional games of putting them in teams and bingo and all of those type games. But games-based learning and in this generation is working very well. But I was just wanting to see what I could do that was simple and didn't even have to be interactive and didn't have to be embedded with the content. And that would mean it could go across any type of class, and it'd be a lot simpler. But I know the students would like some more interactivity with it as to deciding how they spend their points. Somebody might like more animals, somebody might like more flowers, and that engages the creativity element of the gaming, which is a good thing to have as well. Oh, no. Trees, nature, animals. Yeah, somebody there with a gun. Kangaroo, gone. Any other questions? Okay, we're done. Thank you.